evening, everyone. I'll just give everyone a few minutes to get in from the waiting room. Welcome to our first webinar series for 2025. It's great to be starting one of our series again. It's always loads of information and lots of inspiration from all these fantastic practitioners and experts that spend time sharing their wisdom and knowledge. So tonight we're really pleased to introduce you to Lauren Jane. Now, Lauren is the founder of, and I might mispronounce this, I'm sorry, is it Kaya Wellness?
Yeah, nailed it.
Yeah, lovely. So, and she runs an Australia-wide telehealth practice and she specialises in gut health. Now, she has both degrees in naturopathy and behavioural science, so she brings a real deep understanding of that whole gut-brain connection and a holistic approach to her digestive care. She's had, I'm sure she'll tell you a little bit about it as well. She's had her own experience with digestive issues, and that's really helped inform her study and research and practice into what we're going to learn from tonight. And so tonight she's going to talk to us about intuitive eating and a way to approach aligning our daily practices and how we can support our digestive health in a bit of an individualized way. So thank you so much for joining us. We're really looking forward to learning from you tonight. I'll just quickly remind everyone to just pop themselves on mute, but at the end, we'll have time for questions and have a bit of a chat then. So feel free to unmute yourselves then. Thanks, everyone.
Hi, everyone. Very excited to present for you guys today. Hopefully we get through this with no technical hiccups. I thought I was good with technology, but having a few little issues to start with. So my name is Lauren and I'm a Melbourne-based naturopath. I'm not sure where all of you guys are from, but I was Australian trained and I now live in Thailand and I have lived here for the past 12 years. And I see people online. I work, my passion is digestive health, but I also actually work a lot with perimenopausal, menopausal and postmenopausal women. That's kind of, I could support women in going through those phases of life with my eyes closed. I do a lot of it, so I don't know what age range everyone is here or if there's any health issues in particular, but if we have some time left over, I can definitely answer some questions in relation to any hormonal stuff, any gut stuff today, because I just want it to be really specific and informative for everyone. Sorry for some of the guys today who are here. A bit of it is directed towards women in some elements. So I'm talking today about an intuitive approach to eating. Before I jump right into it, so over 15 years experience, already shared a little bit about my background in psychology and naturopathy. I suppose my approach is very much, as a naturopath, I want to consider the whole being, but also, the mental, emotional element and how that impacts our digestive health and also how that impacts our food choices. So that's how I work, just wanting to bring intuitive eating to the forefront of people's dietary choices, rather than having them focus on dieting, which I think is, can be a big issue when it comes to women in particular, and I'll jump into that in a sec. But I know a lot of you here are plant-based. I was personally plant-based for about 10 years. I was vegetarian and then came to Thailand and somehow got, started to understand my body a little bit more and started eating in a way that I felt that was a little bit more helpful for my body, but I am still predominantly plant-based and happy to include some tips and tricks into today's talk in relation to that also. So why intuitive eating? Most women, I'm assuming from what I've been told in this community, may have lived through decades of body ideals and wellness fads, through the whole calorie counting, low-fat Atkins diet, crazy diets like the red wine diet, the cigarette diet, the lime juice diet, and things like the point system. I think it would be hard-pressed to find someone in the world who has, lived through their life and not been on some or tried some kind of diet. And I think we've very much been taught that thinness equals worth, or that hunger is something that we should be trying to suppress and overcome. But my question is, what if we were and still are missing a better way to approach our nutrition? So many of you may have lived through that Jane Fonda fitness area, where it's really reinforced that there's kind of very narrow beauty standards and our self-worth is tied to our weight and our appearance. There's a lot of shame-based dietary advice, and firstly, a lot of it would never fly in today's day and age. And we're definitely seeing even the impact of like Instagram and people using filters on their images, and young girls getting eating disorders and this kind of stuff. A lot of the dietary advice back then was really, really dangerous. And I found this crazy diet that was printed in Vogue in the 1970s, which is breakfast, 1 hard-boiled egg, 1 glass of white wine, black coffee, then lunch is 2 eggs, hard-boiled is best, coffee, 2 glasses of white wine, and then you get some steak with lemon juice and the rest of your bottle of wine. I don't know if anyone in the audience has ever actually seen this printed, but it's a little bit crazy when you look back and think that this is something that was actually in the media. So essentially, intuitive eating is like a gentle rebellion against all this crazy dietary advice, and an invitation to kind of come back home to your body and go, all right, let my body be my guide instead of an influencer or the TV or, you know, whatever fad diet is going at the moment. So what exactly is intuitive eating? We live in a world basically that tells us what to eat, when to eat it, how we should move, how much sleep we should have, and it's all based on these external rules. None of it really considers us as individuals. It doesn't consider our particular lifestyle, our likes, our dislikes, our health conditions. So we have this, you know, community of people who are just all following a particular style of eating or whatever is out there and whatever is new, rather than considering us as individuals. And over time, when we are following these diets, it disconnects us from our body and our body's innate signals. And it can also lead to obviously shame for not being able to stick to a certain diet, stress, binging, restriction, and then confusion. I don't know how many times I have clients coming to me and being like, I don't know what on earth to eat. There's the keto diet, there's, you know, low fat, low sugar, fasting, like what on earth am I meant to do? My friend lost weight by doing the keto, but when I do it, it makes me really unwell. People are just overwhelmed by all of the nutritional information that's out there, and as they should, because there is, you know, what's good for one person isn't necessarily good for another. So there's lots of people telling their stories and sharing their information out there. So in essence, intuitive eating rejects the idea that anything outside of us should dictate when and what we should eat or how much we should eat. And it says to screw traditional diets and imposed rules and instead create awareness. So it's about trusting your body's cues, about letting go of rigid food rules and diet culture pressure. And it's about respecting the ebbs and flows and changes of your appetites and needs, and eating in a way that supports your health, energy, likes and dislikes, and reconnecting you with how food actually feels in your body. So honoring our individuality. Where are we in life? You know, what do we need at this stage of life? And just pointing out that it's not a trend, it's a return to our inner wisdom, the instinct that has kind of been there all along, knowing when and what to eat. So I just wanted to throw in a little study here that people who look inwards and trust their intuition when it comes to nutrition are happier and healthier, and the science backs this up. So a study published in the International Journal of Eating Disorders found that women who reported trusting their body to tell them how much to eat had significantly lower odds of engaging in extreme weight control behaviors and binge eating compared to those who did not trust their body. A longitudinal study indicated that intuitive eating predicted better psychological and behavioral health outcomes, including lower odds of high depressive symptoms, low self-esteem, high body dissatisfaction, and disordered eating behaviors. So I think that's worth giving intuitive eating a go, considering we would all know someone who has poor body image if it's not ourselves, or have been through some kind of disordered eating throughout their lives, whether it's extreme as anorexia or binge eating, or just having a life of always kind of fighting with food and their body image and their body shape. Now, the roots of intuitive eating. Before I show the version of intuitive eating that I work with with my own clients, I want to recognize the actual founders of this approach. I don't know if anyone has heard of intuitive eating before. It's definitely up and coming in the States more than it is so much in Australia. But Evelyn Triboli and Elise, I can never pronounce her name, we'll call it Rish, are two US-based dietitians who back in the 90s began to see the deep harm caused by chronic dieting. They were watching women, especially those in midlife, struggle with body shame, food guilt, binging, and disconnection. In 1995, they co-wrote a book that became the foundation for what we now know as intuitive eating. And it's a powerful, compassionate framework that helps us trust our bodies again. So essentially to reject diet rules, honor hunger and satiety, and eat from a place of self-respect instead of self-punishment. So a nice quote from Evelyn Triboli is, "You were born with all the wisdom you need to eat well." So let's stop looking outside of ourselves and start looking within. Oh, I don't know. I was really hoping this would work, but it's not going to. This was a little video that I found online, which basically just showed a few celebrities that had been essentially body shamed publicly on camera. So I just wanted to share that just to give you a little bit of a reminder of how strong diet culture is and why moving to something like intuitive eating is going to be really powerful. So these are my intuitive guidelines that I want to share with you guys over the next half an hour. So this is my gentle framework to become an intuitive eater, to feel at peace with food, satisfied, flexible, and nourished by your diet. And I want to emphasize flexible there, because I think about how many people go out to lunch and they chat with their girlfriends about this diet and that diet, and very few people order what they want to order off the menu without thinking twice, and feel that they can be flexible with their diet and still feel that they are achieving their goals or still feeling healthy. So the 7 guidelines are: ditch diet culture and food guilt, tune into your hunger and satiety, eat foods that nourish you, be mindful at mealtime, tune into seasonal changes, honor your emotions without food, and practice gentle nutrition. What else was I going to say about this? I'll move on. All right, so guideline number one is ditch diet culture and food guilt. So this image on the left, it's pretty hard for you guys to see, but I'll read to you what it is. It's a little bit of a cycle. And number one is the excitement of starting a new diet or plan. So this is just basically exemplifying what diet culture is, if that's a new term for you. So everyone gets really excited. There's hope, there's momentum. Maybe that feeling of this time is going to be different. I'm going to be able to lose some weight. Then starts the restriction, whether it's cutting carbs, fasting, eliminating entire food groups, or just trying to eat as little as possible and to suppress your hunger. And this number 2 phase, whether it's cutting carbs, whatever it is that I mentioned, it sometimes does result in weight loss and people get excited, but ultimately this is it's an unsustainable way to eat. And number 3 brings with it that rebound phase, where eventually cravings are kicking in, we're feeling exhausted, overwhelmed, and then you start to eat more again. Your body's going, hang on, we've been restricting really intensely here. We're hungry, and our appetite starts to kind of go a bit crazy, and we start to eat more and more. And often that can turn into binging for people. And then if people binge, then it turns into the guilt, or you start to think, I'm a failure. Why couldn't I stick to this diet? You know, my friend stuck to it for 4 weeks. She lost 5 kilos. Why can't I do it? And so the cycle repeats again. And each time we're losing trust in our body, we're always looking outside, like, someone tell me what to do to help me achieve my goal or how to eat. So for many women, including myself, this started in teen years, or sorry, not teen years for myself, but a lot of people it does start for teen, but otherwise in your early 20s. And it's pretty scary to see girls as young as, 8 or 9 having eating disorders. So diet culture is the glorification essentially of losing weight at all costs. And the problem is that this pattern isn't benign. It really does impact our metabolism, it impacts our digestion, it impacts our mood. If you've ever met someone who's dieting, they're not feeling really happy. It impacts our self-esteem and our relationship to food. And it's also particularly dangerous for women when you're looking at if someone is in their reproductive years, it's going to impair whether they ovulate. When the body is in a state of stress or restriction, it is not going to want to provide fertile ground to have a child. And then if women are in menopause, they might think that they're immune from that and they're okay to be doing these extreme diets. But actually what happens is when we move into menopause, the body starts making these new hormones to help us feel good and prevent, the hot flushes, the itchy skin, the vaginal dryness, the sore boobs, all of that. And if we're restricting ourselves and driving up our stress hormone, it actually steals the little bit of hormones that the body is trying to make to keep us afloat. So it's actually not a time to be restricting. It's really a time to be nourishing and eating in a way that is supporting your body through menopause or even post-menopause. So how do we ditch diet culture? I would say raising your awareness is number one. And I think a lot of women have probably grown up with this and it is just absolutely normal. So me speaking about it and really pointing it out is definitely today's day and age thing where people are conscious of fat phobia and really, really thin models and trying to promote health over being slender. So just be aware that it is pairing thinness with beauty and it is prioritizing calorie restriction over our physical and emotional health. So people often care more about being skinny than they do about being strong and healthy. It fuels negative self-talk and it has us believe that a certain body type is not only expected to feel valuable, but also something attainable for anyone with enough willpower. Diet culture is the encapsulation of diet promotion, cleanses, summer bodies, and bouncing back after you have a baby. This mindset doesn't just harm our relationship with food, it shapes how we judge others too. And for women in menopause, it definitely, your body changes. The body wants to hold on to fat because fat becomes a source of estrogen. So there's a lot of women that I work with in clinic who, it feels like overnight, suddenly they have a belly, their boobs are bigger, they've got love handles. They were also always someone who was really quite slim in their life, and it's really hard to deal with that. And then they are jumping into these restrictive diets that's actually not helping them in any way. So diet culture is everywhere. It's magazines, social media, it's even in healthcare with doctors just assuming that, losing weight is going to help them feel healthier when that's not always the case, or it's not so easy. This mindset teaches women, especially in certain generations, that restriction is a virtue and that hunger should be silenced. And unfortunately, it causes deep harm, not just physically, but also mentally, emotionally. So how do we ditch diet culture? This is not as simple as what I would like it to be. It can be a really long-term journey for some women, especially because it promotes black and white thinking around food. Food is either clean or junk, it's good or it's bad. People have cheat days because, eating that kind of food that's more indulgent or more calorie heavy must be bad and I'm cheating. But food is actually not a moral issue. Salad doesn't make you a saint, and having cake doesn't make you a sinner. So I encourage people to start with a little bit more of a compassionate lens, and that is that all foods have a place, and soul food should matter just as much as all other foods. Think about how I feel when I eat matters perhaps more than what we actually. Sorry, let me rephrase that. What I was trying to say is I am really a big believer that if you are eating a salad when you're really stressed out, that is no better or worse than eating a cake when you're really happy. Our mental emotional well-being impacts how we digest our food, how we utilize that food. So don't overlook the importance of your perspective towards food, I suppose. Curate your social media. So if you are on social media, even if you have books on your shelf, you're reading magazines, whatever it is that is your go-to, stop outsourcing your nutritional information, even though you're here today, but I'm telling you to look within. Whenever time you read something or you see something on social media, take it with a grain of salt, because you are always going to be the person that knows what is best for you above any dietitian, any practitioner, any naturopath, even your doctor. You know what's best for you. I absolutely hate seeing on social media people sharing, this is what I eat in a day, particularly when they're in someone who lives in a small body, and it's kind of promoting, if you eat like this, then you too could look like me. And it's completely ignoring the fact that someone might have insulin issues, they might have polycystic ovarian syndrome, they might have an eating disorder, they could have anything going on. So really just remember, what someone is telling you online is not always going to be right for you. Other ways to ditch diet culture: stop weighing yourself obsessively or at all. Your worth isn't on the scale. I often get backlash when I say this, because I know a lot of people who love their scale. They love to hop on their scale every single day, and it feels that it keeps them, in check, in line. And by all means, if that is what you feel works for you, you do you. But I mention it because I know that if someone has been eating really healthy, if they've been exercising and they're feeling really great in their body, they might hop onto the scale and the scale has told them they've gained, 3 kilos. And all of a sudden they're like, everything's turned to shit now. I'm just going to eat whatever I want. Doesn't matter if I'm healthy. Doesn't matter if I'm exercising. It's not shifting anything. And that's just not truth. Firstly, the scale is impacted by how much water you drank that day, whether you've had a bowel motion, whether you've just exercised, how much carbohydrate you've consumed, because that also holds water. It's going to be impacted by where a woman might be in her cycle. So I'm not a fan of them personally. I think they can derail you unnecessarily. Stop labeling yourself by how good or bad you were with food, and start questioning who profits from your insecurity. As you can imagine, when we feel really bad about ourselves, the diet industry, the beauty industry, the injectables industry, they all profit greatly from us. Stop moralizing exercise. This is a big one. Trying to move from a place of seeing exercise as a punishment. I ate an entire pizza last night and you really need to go to the gym. I want to go for a run, versus eating whatever you like and exercise just being a part of your week or your everyday life, and actually finding an exercise that makes you feel good and starting to remember all the reasons that you want to exercise, because your skin looks great when you exercise, you feel really energetic, you're much happier, your work colleagues don't annoy you as much when you've gotten up and exercised that day, or you're sleeping better. Really try and focus on that and not have it have so much to do with your body. Rather than having body goals, rather have maybe a strength goal or a health goal, knowing that if you're walking every day, your arthritis is not as significant, something like that. Stop following detoxes, cleanses, or restrictive wellness trends. So throw out the diet books and the food plans. In particular, I mentioned this before, but I hear a lot of people gather around the table and they kind of feed off each other. Yep, I'm doing this diet. Have you guys tried keto? And everyone is kind of feeding off one another. Obviously, the people in this community are plant-based, but I know at least 3 people in my immediate friendship group who are not only vegan, but they are also gluten-free. It can make your diet incredibly restrictive, and often people are doing it because they have, it's not necessarily a weight thing, but they don't tolerate certain foods properly. But that's another thing we can speak about down the track. I've got a few slides on that. Start seeking out intuitive eating or body liberation resources, because we don't want to die thinking that we spent our entire life dieting or caring about what our body looks like. And I'm sure that shifts for people at a certain age, but I think some people will always be on the diet mouse wheel. What word am I trying to say? All right, listen to your hunger and satiety is guideline number 2. Tune into and honor your hunger and satiety. So the diet industry has conditioned us to eat by the clock, follow strict portion guidelines, suppress our appetite, and by reconnecting with our innate appetite and fullness cues, it's an essential first step to becoming an intuitive eater. So what was I going to say about that? Tune into and honor our hunger and satiety. It can actually be a really difficult thing to do if you've always been outsourcing. I need to eat breakfast because it's 9 o'clock, or I need to eat lunch because it's 12, or maybe you even work and you only get an hour lunch break at a certain time. So you don't have that space or that time to wait till you're hungry. You might always have looked outside of yourself for timing of when to eat. So it can be a tricky one trying to tune back in. And what I have found is helpful is using a hunger and satiety scale. And I think this is also particularly helpful, say, for people who are hungry all the time. Maybe people who are always like, bored, and they're walking over to the fridge and they're opening the fridge, or they're standing in front of the cupboard, or they're on the phone in the cupboard and thinking about eating, or being perhaps triggered by someone eating food on television and all of a sudden deciding, I think I want to order Chinese. So this hunger and satiety scale, and we can blow it up at the end, but essentially it encourages you, next time you reach for a snack, to pause and rate your hunger on a scale of 1 to 10. So if you don't have a tummy grumble or feeling light in your head, or however hunger presents for you, then ask yourself, what else could be driving my desire for food? Is it because you've been restricting that day? Is it because something stressful happened earlier in your day? Did you just have a fight with your partner? Are you feeling stressed, anxious, or is it boredom? And this isn't about controlling when you eat, or don't do that, because it's definitely not hunger. It's just about creating curiosity, particularly at the beginning, just to start to understand and notice your behaviors and your patterns. And I've done it myself, and I have no doubt that you, just like me, will start to notice how often it's not an actual physical hunger. So with the hunger and satiety scale, if your cue is to act below the line, it's like stop eating, or above the line. So the other thing that I found really, really powerful, particularly for people who are overeating, people who are feeling sick after they eat, perhaps if that is because you're eating too quickly or you're eating too much, I like to get my clients to pause mid-meal and say, does the food still taste as good as what it did at the start? If you've ever had a chocolate bar or a block of chocolate, you might have noticed that, the first few pieces taste incredible and delicious. And then you'll find that you're still eating, and you're, however many rows of chocolate in, and it just starts to taste like burning or sugar, and it's not actually even delicious. And we're just doing that compulsion of eating. So just ask yourself, does it still feel good? Does it still taste good? Do I feel bloated? Do I feel all right? Yes or no? And honestly, it's not about, like I said, it's not about controlling. If you want to keep eating, that's fine, but make it a conscious decision. Hey, I know I'm not hungry anymore, or I know this doesn't taste so good, but today I'm going to pleasure eat, or today I'm going to eat because I feel crappy and it feels nice and I've decided I want to comfort eat. Just bring awareness around your behaviors. Guideline number 3, eat foods that nourish you. So, let go of rigid food rules. Instead, choose meals that you actually want to eat, that feel good in your body and your belly. Foods that sustain your energy, and foods that leave you feeling satisfied, not deprived. Big one for me is, I always say, eat foods that you love, but also foods that love you back. So you might love eating a bowl of pasta, a cheesy bowl of pasta, but perhaps that food doesn't love you back and you end up feeling not so great. Or perhaps it's also about how much of that pasta you eat. Maybe you feel fine with 1 bowl and you don't feel great with 2 bowls. So keep that in mind for guideline number 3. We already spoke about that. How do I feel during and after eating this? So many of us have internalized beliefs like carbs are bad, fat is fattening, healthy means bland. So people end up eating foods that they think that they should, but not foods that they actually enjoy or that feel good in their body. So someone might be having green smoothies because they're sure that kale is the new superfood and it's what they should be doing. But actually afterwards they feel bloated and they don't feel great. Instead of listening to that, they continue to have the green smoothie every morning. And it just shows how disconnected we are. So it's about remembering that nourishment is more than nutrition. A meal can be nutrient dense, like I just said with the green smoothie, but actually it makes you feel bloated, tired, and unsatisfied. So, like I said before, start checking in with that scale, or even you don't have to be nitty gritty, you can just ask yourself with every meal, how do I feel? How does this make me feel? Now, this guideline can be a little bit tricky for people who think, oh, food freedom, I can eat whatever I want, right? I just need foods that I love eating. And this might be because they have never stepped away from the cycle of dieting. So they've never actually said, you can eat what food you would like. So they end up either compulsively eating or overeating these kinds of foods. So in the next slide, I have a list of the things that drive our hunger. So when you're thinking about, when you're choosing food and you're like, okay, I'm choosing something that I want to eat, let's also think about perhaps why we're hungry, and that might also change how much of that food we're going to eat or what food that we'll eat. So what we're told influences our dietary choices is motivation, willpower, and discipline. But what actually influences our dietary choices is how knowledgeable we are. So if this community is plant-based, you guys are going to know how positive a plant-based diet can, how positively a plant-based diet can impact your digestive health, your inflammation levels. It's going to provide you with fiber. It's going to provide you with loads of antioxidants and nutrients. Someone else might not know that, so they're not going to be going for like the Nourish bowl at a cafe. They're going to be going for the bacon and eggs. Access and finances is also another one. What can you afford to be eating? We can't all choose exactly what we want to be eating based on that. Time management. If you work long hours, if you're a mama with kids or a grandmother, you may not have time to make the healthiest meals. Hydration. That will influence, we might feel that we're more hungry than we are when we're actually dehydrated. Medications can influence us. If anyone here has insulin resistance and they're using, say, something like metformin, they might know that that makes them quite nauseous in the tummy, and that's going to influence their food choices and their appetite. Our hormones as a woman are going to influence our appetite and the food choices we make. Premenstrually, where we actually burn, I think it's about 300 more calories than we would other times in our cycle. So that will influence things. Alcohol intake will influence us. Everyone tends to eat more greasy, crappy food after a night of some beer, wine, or cocktails. How well we sleep is definitely going to influence the way that we eat. I think, I don't want to say this stat here in case I'm wrong, but I think it is something as crazily low as having 1 or 2 hours less sleep than we need each night can significantly throw out our insulin sensitivity. So it's going to impact the way that the cravings that we have and the way that we utilize carbohydrates. So instead of using them for energy, we might store them as fat. And it also impairs our digestive microbiome. So when those bugs that live in our gut are disrupted, they can also cause us to crave sugar. Our relationships is a huge one. If you are married to or dating a person who has a crappy diet, it is incredibly difficult to have a healthy diet. And if your partner is eating a bag of chips on the couch next to you watching Netflix, it takes a lot of willpower to not want to be consuming those chips with your partner. So that is hugely going to direct your meal choices. Inflammation, obviously inflammation can drive sugar cravings. How much we exercise is going to drive us how much food that the body wants. I mentioned blood sugar, nutritional status, and also age. I think as we age, we want to eat less food. What else was I going to say here? Oh, I already said that. So, on that guideline, finding out how do you know, is this nourishing? It is about listening to your body, and your body will often tell you when a food isn't quite right for you. But we actually need to slow down and listen. So, some symptoms might show up immediately. We might get heartburn, we might experience reflux. It might be something easy like, yep, I had a coffee, or I had some tomatoes, or I ate some red onion, and there's that indigestion, or I had a beer and it flares up, you know what is going on. Firstly, how many people here actually listen to their body when that happens, and how many of them just go, oh, yep, I'll be right. Take a Reni or a whatever heartburn chewy or a protein pump inhibitor, their medication, and they just continue to eat those foods that their body is clearly telling them it does not like. But then there are other foods that can have a delayed reaction. So that's what an IgG immune response is, and that is what a true food intolerance is. So you might have, let me think, it could be anything. It doesn't always look like the usual suspects like gluten, dairy, sugar, alcohol, or MSG. It could be broccoli, because you have an overgrowth of bad bacteria in your small intestine, and you react to that. And it's tricky because often these things don't show up. They can show up anywhere between 1 day and 4 days later. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that as we age, our digestive enzymes reduce, which means if we consume a food, we're going to find it more difficult to break down that food and absorb the nutrients from that food. So slowly eating is going to help with that. Properly chewing is going to help with that. Preparing your own meals, cooking your own meals instead of getting takeaway is going to help, because you smell the food, your body starts to salivate, you start to produce enzymes to help you break down that meal. Guideline number 4, be mindful at meals. How often do you eat while scrolling, while watching TV, working, or even while driving? When we eat distracted, we impair our digestion and we miss our fullness cues, and this is often why we also overeat or we get indigestion. So for this guideline, I'm always encouraging people to take time to sit with your meal or snack. And this is a really good piece of advice. If you have any digestive issues or you want to be more of an intuitive eater, take 5 deep breaths before your meal. This takes people who have anxiety or who are stressed or who are in a rush, takes them from being an elevated nervous system, a sympathetic state, down into the parasympathetic state, which we refer to as the rest and digest. So it can help a lot for people who have food intolerances. While you're eating, notice the smell, texture, flavor, and the satisfaction that you feel with that meal. I already mentioned this one, pause halfway. And, I lost what else I was going to say on that. It'll come back to me. Oh, that's what I was going to say. I just lost it again. If you tend to, I don't know, have an evening dinner biscuit, or you love something a little sweet after dinner, or even, right when you get home from work, you just want to grab something that's quick and easy. I definitely find that if people suddenly become more mindful with that snack, and they're not just grabbing it, like I said, from the cupboard and eating it while they're standing or eating it while they're cooking, and they actually put, I don't know, that piece of chocolate on a plate, which sounds incredibly unappealing, and actually sit down with that food, take those 5 deep breaths, and then eat it in complete silence, as opposed to, while in front of the television or while chatting to a friend or while working. You'll notice that it appears much less appealing, and people tend to actually mindlessly eat. And that is what makes us eat foods that we normally wouldn't eat, or overeat those foods. So I don't want to destroy food for you. I still want you to love food, but that's just a little practice that you might find interesting. And if anyone here is an emotional eater or a compulsive eater, I would highly recommend the audiobook by a lovely woman called Janine Roth. It's called Women, Food and God. It is in no way a religious book, but she's incredible. I won't go on about it, but I recommend looking her up. And you do get a free, I think, audible book when you first sign up, so you can get it for free. And she has a really lovely voice and is worth listening to. Okay. Guideline number 5 is to tune into the seasons. So if tapping into your body's wisdom feels challenging or unfamiliar after years of dieting or listening to external cues, then you might like to first begin with tuning into the environment around you. We live in a world shaped by the moon, tides, and seasons, and yet many of us have lost touch with these natural rhythms. In modern life, we tend to chase this endless summer of everyone wants to be in the sun, everyone wants to be productive, it's all about hustling or intensity, but the body actually craves those ebbs and flows, hibernation in winter and planting seeds in autumn and clearing things out in spring. So we're cyclical beings and our needs are always changing, especially as menstruating or menopausal women. Aligning our lifestyle and our diet by noticing the foods or practices that we naturally gravitate toward in different times of the year with the changing seasons can actually restore our vitality. It can improve our digestion and definitely improves our emotional well-being. So we often think of intuitive eating as just listening to when are we hungry, when are we full, but it's so much bigger than that. It's about tuning into your natural rhythms. So I'll speak a little bit about this. I'm sure you guys, the easy one is winter. Winter is about rest. We don't want to go outside. We want to have slow cooked meals. We want stews. We want lentil soups. We want hot cups of chai or big cups of rooibos. We want coziness, and it is a good time to meditate and also to journal. So that's one that I think comes easily to people. Autumn tends to be kind of in that lead up into winter, that time of turning inward. We want our meals to get a little bit more cooked than they might be in summer. In summer, we're going for like raw veggies and green juices. We're happy to exercise outside and we're happy to socialize. But come autumn, we kind of we don't want to go outside quite as much. We're a little bit drained from, seeing all the family and socializing as much as what we do in summer, and we go inwards. And that's a time for tempeh and quinoa bowls and green leafy veggies and bitter veggies. And then spring, I'm not saying this in the right order for you guys, but after winter and spring, we start to get a little bit more energy, days start to get a little bit more light, and we have a fresh start. It's time to plant new seeds, and we'll start wanting, a little bit more fresh foods and things like that. So I like this guideline because it's not just all about us. We are connected to our environment, and I don't think many people really consider that unless you're someone who has your own veggie garden, and then you're probably eating a little bit more locally and a bit more seasonally. So the more you can do that, the more you can go to your local farmers market and see what's available there, the more that you're going to be an intuitive eater. Living in rhythm with the earth helps us stay in rhythm with ourselves. Guideline number 6, honor your emotions without food. This is for the emotional eaters here. I think most people do use food for celebration, for tradition. It reminds us of times when we were young, food that our grandma cooked for us or our mother cooked for us. It's comfort, it's connection, definitely more than fuel. But when food becomes our primary way to cope with emotions, what's her name on that movie, Bridget Jones, if our primary coping mechanism is hopping onto the couch and, sticking our face into a tub of ice cream, then this is what can lead to issues. It can, if we're overeating, it impairs our gut health, it impairs our hormonal health, it can drive up inflammation. So everybody is going to have their own thing that feels good for them, but some things to consider doing instead of reaching for food: a breath work, dance, hot cold therapy, going for a walk, spending time in nature, listening to your favorite music, your favorite podcast, meditating, journaling, or reading a good book. And overall, that's just going to help us have a more balanced relationship with food because, and again, I think I mentioned this earlier, it's okay to pleasure eat. It's okay to say, I feel crappy and I want to eat some chocolate, but try and do that with awareness rather than just shoving food in your mouth and not actually realizing what you're doing. And I think the same goes for alcohol. I think a lot of people use alcohol to manage their stress, often unconsciously. So the final guideline is practice gentle nutrition. So gentle nutrition is about honoring our body's physical needs. So I do still think it is important that we are biologically fed, so to speak. But rather than worrying about all the different types of diets and ways of eating out there, just develop a good understanding of the basics. So we know that our body requires macronutrients to function. We need some plant-based proteins, some healthy fats, some carbohydrates, and I actually also say some fermented foods, some probiotic rich foods. But I always say don't get too caught up in the nitty gritty. It's so easy to see people saying, we need 1 gram of protein per kilo of body weight, or some people will say you need 2.5 grams of protein per kilo of body weight. They're spending their days, maybe they've seen a personal trainer and they're spending their days trying to get in 120 grams of protein in that day, which can be incredibly hard. And then they're often eating when they're not even hungry because they're meant to get this in. I just try and tell my clients, educate yourself enough, and I think this community probably has that education of these are what my proteins are. We've got tempeh, we've got legumes, we've got sprouts, we've got nuts and seeds, we've got tahini, we've got hummus, we've got falafel. There are foods that are probably the highest in protein. Let's make sure that we're getting a serving of those in each of our meal. And then what are our good quality omega-3 fats? We've got flaxseed, chia seeds, hemp seeds. Maybe you're taking a plant-based omega and algae oil. Make sure we're getting that in, at least at least daily. And then good quality carbohydrates. I feel like when you're plant-based, it's almost impossible not to get good quality carbohydrates. You're getting so much with your whole grains and your legumes, your sourdough breads, all of that stuff. So eat foods. Yeah, my motto is basically eat food that grew on the planet. And then if it comes in a packet, then don't prioritize that food, I would say. Choose nourishment most of the time with flexibility always. So a solid understanding of whole food nutrition is fundamental to intuitive eating. Keeping our bodies biologically fed and properly nourished helps prevent cycles of restriction and that urge to overeat. So that gentle nutrition and being biologically fed helps us avoid going into that trap of diet culture, essentially. And I will say, obviously, plant-based diet, because I see a lot of people decide that they want to be vegan or go plant-based, and they just remove the animal products rather than educating themselves on, okay, what does this mean? Do I need more omega-3? Where am I going to get my protein sources? Where am I going to get my calcium, my iron, my B12? So just, doing your research. We have a lot of information at our hands now. And I kind of want to finish this off. I have a few other slides, but first I'll stop for questions. I like to say to people, let's just all eat normally. What the hell does that actually mean? I would like to say that eating normally means it varies in response to your hunger, your health, your feelings, schedule, movement, likes, dislikes, your menstrual cycle, or even your proximity or exposure to food. So just recognize that everything is always changing. Eating normally is going to the table hungry and eating until you're satisfied. It's being able to choose foods that are wholesome but also tasty. It's giving some careful thought to your food selection, but not being so wary or restrictive that you miss out on the enjoyment of meals. It's giving yourself permission to eat, sometimes because you are happy or sad or bored or just because it feels good, but not using food as your sole source of comfort. It's 3 meals a day, or 4, or 5, or just one. It can be choosing to snack or forgetting to eat completely. It's leaving some biscuits in the box because you know you can have some tomorrow, or it's eating more now because they're just so delicious. It's sometimes feeling stuffed or under eating and then deciding that you want more. And it takes up some of your time and attention as it's just one important part of your life. I think I will leave it there and I'll just open it up for questions. And if there's any, if there's any menopausal women or postmenopausal women or anyone with any questions about gut health, please feel free to shout.
Just while people are formulating their questions, I'll just start by saying thank you very much. I was musing just the other day, actually. I was walking around and watching a bunch of people eat. I was shopping and we were near shops and everyone was walking around just sort of seeming to jam food in their mouth. And I was thinking, I wonder how many people actually experience hunger in our society, like actually get to the point where their body is really hungry, or is the average person just walking around either eating in response to sort of feelings or the clock and never actually know what it's like to work up a good appetite and sit down to a nourishing meal and how satisfying and lovely that is.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I think people are either always snacking just for that emotional dopamine hit and that fulfillment, or they're so busy working that they're not thinking about food, and that stress response is actually overriding the hunger. I had someone tell me the other day, there's just no time for food. It's an annoying thing that I have to eat, and I'd rather just get someone to deliver me meals. And if I could, I would be having food in a supplement. Like, what supplements can I take instead of having to eat? And I'm a foodie, so that just blows my mind that people would ever want to bypass the enjoyment of food.
Yeah, that's very sad indeed, I think. Yeah, so with the Natural Health Society, we always talk about we have a guidelines approach, not a diet approach to eating, which helps people, I think, with that bit of flexibility. And we have a similar thing where we talk about the 95% rule, that it's about what you're doing the majority of the time to allow you to not get sucked into that succeed or failure mindset, which I think overlaps with intuitive eating quite a bit, and that people get themselves caught in a cycle of, oh, I've failed, and then that's it. And then they don't start to eat well again. And it's breaking that cycle of feeling like you've failed, that, you can have the occasional bit of chocolate, but it's it's all of those good, wholesome, nourishing foods that when you're being mindful about how you eat, you feel good when you eat those foods. So they're the ones that you go, oh, okay, yes, that's what I want to eat next time round.
And just kind of knowing your blueprint. Like, I recently went to Europe for far too long, and I was having Aperol spritz every day, and I was eating pizza, and there was barely any vegetables where we were. And I just accepted that this is what's happening for the next couple of months, and I'm really going to enjoy it. And I still know what my body needs and what my body wants. And when I come back home, I'm just going to hop back on that wagon, and I'm going to exercise as I usually do and go back to the foods that make my body feel really great. And also just being at peace with that. Our body's always changing, and it's okay if you can't eat the way that you want to. That's fine too. Everything's always changing.
Yes, I know I certainly had a few when I was younger, a few stressful, that period of your life where you're going to a lot of weddings, and as a vegetarian, you get served a lot of baked potato as your wedding food. And I felt like I probably suffered even more because it really irritated me and stressed me out that I was sitting down and I had half a carrot and a couple of bits of potato served to me. And maybe if I had that mindset, I could have embraced it a little bit longer and considered a bit of just a light meal. But
I do.
the emotional element of when you are eating does have an impact.
For sure. But I have also been to some of those weddings where you get the crappy vegetarian meal and everyone else has this beautiful, thoughtful meal. And I just think, is it really that hard to give me some tempeh or, a nice chickpea curry or something?
It was
Apparently, yes.
Lauren. I was eating my dinner while you were speaking because I get home late from work. It's a bit late to be eating, but beautiful salad and some chickpeas, which I was really enjoying. But I was really I made myself a very large a very large bowl to start with, and I thought, when you said, stop halfway through, do you really need any more? Well, I had an apple crumble in the fridge that I'd made the other day, and I wanted to eat some of that too. So I stopped eating the salad and went, it was really good to have you, to be starting to think a little bit more about how I eat rather than just, oh yeah, well, I've got all this food, I better eat it. But I still would have wanted the apple crumble, which is, all very healthy, but yeah, so thank you for that.
No worries. I think we're all taught, right? Like finish everything on your plate.
Mm.
And that book I was speaking about, Women, Food and God, she talks a lot about that, how we're all programmed that, it's waste and it is wasteful. And I read something somewhere, I can't remember exactly, but they were saying that it could be more of an issue putting that food into your body when you don't need it and overeating than just putting it in the bin. It's over putting strain on your digestive system or maybe messing with your blood sugars. It could be interfering with your sleep because you're about to go to bed and now your body's busy digesting instead of healing. So sometimes it's just better pop it in the fridge and eat it tomorrow, or if it's not good anymore, chuck it in the bin.
The chook's got it.
Yeah, great. Love that.
I've got a question here that I'll read out for you. I'm postmenopausal and my tummy has grown. I'm insulin resistant due to stress. Where do I start?
I get this question at least 10 times a day. It is a really tricky one. And when women enter menopause, their insulin sensitivity changes anyway, so that you hold onto fat more and not use those carbohydrates as energy. You actually store them. What I find the best for women, and particularly because you mentioned stress, avoid intense exercise. More is not necessarily better. I find that long walks and gentle exercise combined with some resistance weight bearing exercise for that metabolism and that muscle growth is really good. The other thing I find is gentle intermittent fasting. As you know, after my talk, I hate diets, but I do find that rather than snacking multiple times throughout the day, if you have your meal, wait till you're hungry, and then eat your next meal, you're not spiking insulin every time you have a snack. And it's giving your body that chance to burn fat, heal your gut, make healthy bowel motions. And the other thing, gentle exercise. Oh, and in terms of diet, it's a really tricky one, particularly when you're plant-based. I've been there. But having more fats and proteins over your carbohydrates, because that insulin element is going on, you may be choosing proteins that have lower carbs, so like a plant-based protein powder or some tempeh rather than your chickpeas, which are also quite carb heavy. Things like that. I found those three things are kind of like a non-negotiable for menopausal women.
What about nuts?
Yeah, nuts are good. Nuts are good. You're right. Nice high fat, nice high protein, no carbs. But then it's also being conscious that, I hate talking about calories, but the amount of energy that you're consuming does matter overall as well. So nuts, I mean, I know that when I was vegan, I was eating so many like nut-based cheesecakes and things like that, and it ended up being quite a heavy calorie dense diet for how little I was moving. So just keeping that in mind. Hi guys.
Excellent. Does anyone else have any questions? That's lovely. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom tonight. It's always great to get some extra tips on how to eat and how to, we're all about the long term, and I think that that's the difference between either the way that we approach our guidelines or intuitive eating, is that it's a sustainable approach. It's not this 7-day quick fix, because that's not how you build health at all. And it's all about long term and being able to feel good in yourself.
Yeah, it's definitely preying on people's insecurities as well, like that menopause question. Everyone is seeing, like, you know, you can lose weight in 1 month and you can do this, but it's not helping your menopausal symptoms when you're doing things that are driving your stress up, and these kind of fad diets. So yeah, sustainable all the way.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, thank you very much. I'll send everyone the recording link over the next couple of days, and links to the Kaya Wellness site as well. Next week we'll be joining again. We'll be speaking with Camilla Brinkworth, who'll be delving into plant-based diets a little bit further as well, with a particular focus on omega nutrition. And she'll be talking about her journey from when she became plant-based and accidentally cured herself of arthritis in the process. So that should be a good one to listen to as well. Thank you so much.
Amazing. Thanks for listening, everyone. Have a great night.
Lovely. Thanks.